For my mother, criticism was love, which is why she was frustrated by me. I really just saw it as criticism. She saw it as salvation, but I never felt endangered. It was a strange thing my mother did often, proclaimed she would die for me while being the one that killed me. All my body issues stem from her, and my addiction of people pleasing while defining myself as brave is a mommy issue. You may ask Deandra, how are they connected? To which I say, easy. You cannot truly confront the people that you try to please, even over yourself, which is why I get so sad with how I confront myself. It means I do not even think of pleasing me. When my mother's coworker accused me of being too smart and snarky for my 9 years of age, while her, being 98 years old and literally shedding, my mother walked me outside the facial office where we had run into her and accused me of humiliating her and shipped me down the river. When her old friend with chronic panic attacks, a penchant for dating women beaters, and a history of disappearing on my mom accused me of accusing her child of stealing my Shakira vinyl, my mother took me outside, accused me of humiliating her, and shipped me down the river. When I told my mother the horrible things my father had said to me, including about her, all he had to say was that I was delusional or sensitive, and my mother would, this time, take me inside to ship me down the river. I guess what I'm trying to say is that for a woman trying to save me, she sure shipped me down rivers a lot, just on the word of someone else. For Nina, her mother shipped her to the beach. What we thought was Nina being Dominican turned out to be her mommy issue. In the Caribbean, socks with flip flops is normal, and it is how we recognize each other abroad. What some outside our community deem a fashion eyesore, we see as a bridge and identifier as we migrate to different lands. I one time found and joined an entire Puerto Rican family of 20 in Israel because they said Wepa in front of John the Baptist's home, and I immediately said Mi Gente, and the camaraderie began. Yet for Nina, wearing socks and sandals was not being Dominican. It was her avoidance of being called Bigfoot. Maybe our mothers believed the same thing. My mother loved calling my toes mannish and sausagey, and even if it made me cry, I just had to learn to take a joke. For Nina, her mother became obsessed with how a tall woman could end up a size 12, consistently trying to find ways to make her daughter petite. The result was a woman who never wore heels or any shoe that revealed her toes. I understood her reaction, but processed more of the grief behind it. Why did my mother choose a joke and her laughter over my feelings? Moreover, why was a woman so betrayed by everyone, choosing to make me her joke? Nina could not bear to begin to grieve her mother's cruelty because she had passed away during the COVID crisis, and like most people, she sanctified the dead. Yet a new boyfriend with a foot fetish was making her sanctify her own image to herself. Wepa, I declared. Look at you with those beautiful sandals and on the beach, I announced. Nina had come with a beautiful pedicure and golden sandals that could make the Greek gods jealous. I know, she smiled and wiggled her toes. Is your man sucking them? I asked raunchily. Nina had already described her new beau's attraction to her feet and how it had both fascinated and challenged her. You know it, she smirked. I'm not into it, but I also am not into it. For Nina, her mother had excused her obsession at deeming her daughter's feet ugly as some form of preparation, a way of emotionally toughening her daughter up to how cruel the world could be. The problem was nobody mentioned it. And Lord knows Nina, like most of us, had her toxic friends and mean exes. Yet of all the things they would say while exiting her life, they never promulgated, damn those mannish big feet. Now she had a man that adored them, looked for them, and apparently sucked them. And it was triggering her to not only love her body, but resent the woman that made her not her own mom. Sometimes I fear acknowledging the ways my mother has hurt me, especially when my father abused me. Yet as I progress in daddy recovery, I hit walls because I can only address my father's abuse so much before I have to also address the woman that allowed it and why. Nina curdled and covered her toes until she entered a relationship that encouraged her to love them. And sometimes that encouragement guilts her because she sees the source of it. I do not want to wait till my mother dies to still unpack and ignore the ways she killed me. So yeah, let's discuss. So I think, obviously this is more than just about toes. Um, my mother was very bullying with her humor and with her statements. And it's really hard to talk about my mommy issues on daddy recovery because I feel a level of protective over her. I feel that she did try to honor me, but just never honored herself. I don't think you could only love someone else so much without loving yourself. You can only teach someone else so much about getting prepared for the world without ever analyzing where that preparation, that perspective of preparation came from. And my mother was always teasing me, always joking on me, and my father was too. I think the difference is my father was just, he I call it KKK humor. And I call it that because I studied war and peace movements throughout history. And I had I took a course, and we had to like analyze the KKK, and we watched all these documentaries about them. And what was so crazy about them was, well, beyond everything, one of the things they would do was that was very similar to my father was just they thought a blanket horrible statement about someone's humanity was funny. And it was like the most basic kindergartner joke. You look like a monkey. And then they would all die laughing. And there was a cruelty to it. But when you actually heard it and unpacked it, you're like, where's the punchline? Where is the joke? And it's because they think your humanity is the joke. So to call you ugly, it's not like this, it's not a they may think they're a stand-up comedian when they just made a blanket statement. The joke is your humanity, your existence. Any commentary they make on it is automatically funny. So it's not necessarily that they have to be witty or make some type of smart, cool assessment and dissection of your spirit or your features or anything. It's that you are the joke. And that's why sometimes we hear a lot of, like oppressed communities kind of backhand comedians, because if you make someone consistently the punchline of your joke, but there's no line, it's just all punch, they do have the right to eventually say, you're not even funny. Like, it's not by chance, it is by construct that you always make fun of me, but you don't even make a good joke. You're like, it really is just you yelling that I'm ugly. Whereas my mother is really, really funny, and she kind of hangs on to the joke and jokes and jokes and jokes and dissects me. And we both had bonded, me and Nina, over the fact that like our mothers thought our feet were atrociously ugly. But my mother was always saying something about me was ugly. My fashion, my weight, my toes, how I chewed, how I like there was always something ugly about me. And I think I just reached this point of kind of, ugly doesn't mean dead. Let me chew loud and wear my chi-chis out. I'm wearing my chi-chis out. I'm done. I think I just took the opposite, where if I'm an ogre, then let me be an ogre in sandals. Where with Nina, one of her biggest frustrations is this feeling of I find myself covering up even in my house. Like I wear socks in my house, and I'm dating this really great guy with a little bit of a foot fetish, and he loves this part of me that I absolutely detest. And whenever I let him love on me, I feel guilty because I'm not only disgusted by my feet, but then I remember who made me feel disgusted by it, and it's somebody who I loved that died randomly and horribly during COVID. It's this vicious cycle of how do I acknowledge that somebody hurt me, especially if they passed on. But if I don't acknowledge it, how do I heal? Like this foot phobia that she has did not come out of her ass. And it's something that I understand because even when I'll wear dresses that I know my mother would say I look like a slut or I look really fat in, but I love them and I feel good in them. And it's almost like I have to fight her mentally to put on a dress that I want to wear. And it's the same thing with Nina. And I mentioned, one of the things, my mother, um, And I should unpack these stories. I joined my mother. She loves getting facials. She loved getting facial. And I was like 8. And we met this old coworker of hers that I'd never seen, who was like balding and shedding and 98,000 years old. And she said, "Oh, you think you're smart." And my mother took me outside. "I can't believe you humiliated me always with your jokes." And this is somebody who, if she calls my feet a pack of sausages, I don't laugh, I don't have humor. Suddenly, I thought I was a stand-up comedian against Noah's Ark, the woman who was checking everybody into Noah's Ark. And I felt like with the three examples, like then I brought up my mother's friend who was notoriously an anxious woman. She would fall into these weird depressions where she kind of left my mother for a few years and then came back. And now we were in the come back cycle. Like I'm here, I'm over that depression. And she thought I accused her child of stealing my Shakira greatest hits, and it became this thing where I was thinking, I'm not accusing, I was just looking for it. And then my mother joined her, and I started crying and apologizing, but I didn't feel I needed to apologize. And once again, I humiliated my mom. And my mother just has this tendency of choosing Noah's Ark, the bouncer for Noah's Ark, her friend who has a history of anxiety and depression. Like, it was just all these examples of people. All they had to say was Deandra was doing wrong, and my mother was on their side. And it was the same thing with my dad. All he had to say was I was being sensitive, and all that verbal, psychological abuse that he did to her too was suddenly me being delusional and hearing things that weren't there. And I hated that because it made me feel really alone. And it pushed this side of me that kind of people pleases and presumes that she is just the worst person in the world. And that's why she has to, overwhelmingly adore Noah's Ark bouncer and anxiety depression friend and dad, verbally abusive dad. Like I kind of find myself in these relationships where I almost say sorry upon entrance, like sorry that I'm a horrible human being. Meanwhile, it takes me 3 years to accept they are. And I think with Nina, her grief, we're just different. We're in different domains. I don't want to unpack how much my mother hurt me after she dies, because who knows how long she will live. And I also fear, and it's something that I noted in Rita Moreno's documentary, I don't want to feel relieved by her death either. And I think that's the problem when you have a weird relationship with your mother, a toxic relationship with your mother. Nina's mom, like my mom, they thought we were good because we laughed a lot and we had fun, but they were also mean. And they weren't really loving. They weren't huggers and complimenters, or they were very strict and get all A's and make sure you say thank you for everything to me and everyone. Like I almost had to thank that woman for calling me a smart ass. And to say that to a 9-year old, that was the word she specifically said, smart ass. And my mom was like, "Oh my God." And it's hard. I think for Nina, it's hard not to want to protect a mother who passed away. And it's not much easier when they're still alive, because you get into this relationship like she is with this guy, or you start trying to really love yourself like I am right now. And what you find is the ways they didn't protect you, the ways they didn't encourage you to love yourself, the way they actually made you hate yourself. Like my mother really thought bullying me was protecting me from all the things that people would say about me. That I don't have now. My friends tell me they love my fashion, and sometimes I'm like, really? You know, because like I said, I'll go out thinking I look like a clown because my mother made me think I look like a clown. But I'm like, well, F it, I'm a clown. And they're like, oh my God, love that dress. You're so, oh wow, oh wow. And I'm like, well, damn, like, who's the clown now, mommy? It's just this kind of, you're kind of waiting for the world to turn on you in the ways they turned on you because that's was their excuse. I know I'm making you cry, but it's because the world will. And they're going to make you cry because you have atrocious toes. And what Nina, what stuck out to me when we were talking about it was she said, like, nobody's mentioned it, Deandra. Like, not one person has ever mentioned my feet. And I'm here, like, wearing, like, Mario Kart thick ass bubble boots just to cover them. And no one mentions them. If anything, like, people come up with new things that they find annoying about you. I one time had a boss say that he found it annoying how kind I was. Like literally. And I'm like, what? Like didn't want me to work for him anymore because I was too kind. Another boss told me I was just too I was too diligent. I'm like, what? Now even good things are bad? Is the sky purple? Is right left? And I feel really bad for Nina because again, we're just not in the same playing field. But I don't know. I don't know. I think it's that we had mothers that were so unguarded and so betrayed by everyone in their life that we compensated by staying extremely loyal to them, even when they betrayed us, even when they made us think that we should betray ourselves by not having boundaries, by not having no. Like, I gave up on telling my mom not to make fun of me. Now I just, what can I do? But there are times where I'm like, should I have given up? Should I? Because if I bring it up, and that's how you know you're not in a good relationship. If you bring up how somebody hurts you and they either throw it back at you, you hurt yourself, or you hurt me, or that isn't how this is working, you're not in a good relationship. Because that should, first of all, there are relationships that don't have those discussions. But even when they do, they're with the purpose of healing. And for Nina and I, she has to accept her mother. She can't heal her relationship with her mom now that she's dead. I have to accept that being alive, it won't heal it either. That these were women that kind of thought that because the relationship was good, it didn't have to get better. And that relationship, these were the women that taught us about womanhood. That relationship deeply impacted how we associate with our bodies, with our minds, with men. And we kind of felt sold. We really did. So check out daddyrecovery.com for the stories. Check out Deandra on all platforms for my songs. And follow this podcast, follow my socials so you could see the videos. And God love you.